The glass shattered against the marble floor before anyone could pretend they hadn't heard it. Conversations froze, forks hovered in midair, and every pair of eyes in the five-star Manhattan restaurant turned toward the single father in a worn black vest, kneeling to gather the broken pieces with shaking hands. In front of him stood a woman in a silver gown, diamond earrings catching the chandelier light like tiny stars. She wasn't angry, she was smiling. And then, in a voice that carried over the clinking glasses and muted jazz, she said she would marry him. If you had been there, what would you have done? If you were a man who counted every dollar before buying groceries, whose son's shoes had holes near the toes, whose pride had already been ground thin by life, would you have laughed it off? Or would you have felt something stir inside you, something reckless and impossible, daring you to believe in miracles? Ryan had learned not to believe in miracles. He had been a waiter at the Kensington Crown for 6 years, ever since the construction company he worked for went under. Before that, he had been a husband, a homeowner in a modest neighborhood in Queens, a man who believed in stability. Then came the accident that took his wife Hannah on a rain-slicked highway outside Albany. In a single night, grief hollowed him out and responsibility filled the space. He was left with a 3-year-old boy named Noah and a mortgage he could barely afford. He sold the house within the year, moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, slept on the couch so Noah could have the bedroom, took whatever job he could find until he landed at the Kensington Crown, where tips from wealthy patrons kept the lights on. Every morning he packed Noah's lunch, walked him to school, kissed his messy brown hair, and promised he would always come back. He always did. The night everything changed was an early spring evening when Manhattan still held on to winter's bite. The restaurant was hosting a private celebration for a tech company that had just secured a record-breaking acquisition. The name of the company was Titanwave Industries, a rising giant in renewable energy. Ryan had seen the name in headlines but never paid attention. Headlines didn't help with rent. The woman in the silver gown had arrived last, stepping out of a black town car as if she were stepping onto a stage. Her name, he would later learn, was Victoria Hale, and she was not only the CEO of Titanwave, but one of the wealthiest women in America. At that moment, though, she was just another customer to him, another elegant figure who would likely tip based on mood rather than service. She had watched him throughout the evening, not in the dismissive way many rich patrons did, but with quiet curiosity. When he refilled her water, she asked about the bracelet on his wrist, a simple woven band made of blue and green threads. He told her it was something Noah had made at school. She smiled then, and there had been something almost wistful in her expression. Later, after champagne had flowed and laughter grew louder, she called him over again. Her colleagues were boasting about mergers, stocks, and private jets. Someone joked that Victoria could buy the entire restaurant if she wanted, and that was when she looked at Ryan, at his tired eyes and patient posture, and said, with a playful tilt of her head, that she would marry him. The words were clearly meant as a joke. The table erupted in laughter. Someone clapped. A man teased that even a waiter could become royalty overnight. Ryan felt heat rush to his face. He forced a grin and, carried by embarrassment and something reckless in his own exhaustion, replied that he accepted. More laughter, more applause. It was supposed to end there. But Victoria did not laugh. Instead, she studied him, her expression shifting from amusement to something unreadable. She asked his name. He told her. She asked if he had children. He hesitated, then nodded. "One son," he said. Her gaze softened. The rest of the night passed in a blur, but before she left, she pressed a business card into his hand. Not in a flirtatious way, not like someone who expected anything, just quietly. The card was heavy, embossed with silver lettering. Victoria Hale, Chief Executive Officer, Titanwave Industries. Ryan almost threw it away on the subway ride home. He had seen enough of life to know that rich people could afford to joke about impossible things. He could not. He tucked the card into his wallet and forgot about it, until she came back. 2 weeks later, on a slow Tuesday afternoon, Victoria walked into the restaurant alone. No entourage, no silver gown, just jeans, a cream sweater, and her hair tied back. Ryan nearly dropped a tray when he saw her. She requested his section. This time there was no champagne, No laughter from executives. She asked about Noah, about how old he was now, about what he liked to do. Ryan answered cautiously, unsure of her intentions. He had learned that hope could be dangerous. She told him she had grown up in Ohio, raised by a single mother who worked double shifts at a hospital. She told him she had built Titan Wave from a small startup in a rented garage, sleeping on an air mattress for months. She told him she understood what it meant to fight for every inch of stability. It sounded rehearsed, but it wasn't. Over the next month, she kept returning. Sometimes for lunch, sometimes just for coffee. They talked about everything except that joke. She asked if she could meet Noah. Ryan almost said no. He had promised himself he would never bring someone into his son's life unless he was certain. Noah had already lost one parent. Ryan would not risk letting him lose another. But something about Victoria felt steady, not flashy, not cruel, just steady. She met Noah at a small park near their apartment. No cameras, no bodyguards. She sat on a worn wooden bench and listened as Noah rambled about dinosaurs and superheroes. She didn't check her phone once. That was when Ryan began to feel something terrifying. Hope. He learned about the weight she carried, the board meetings where men twice her age questioned her authority, the lawsuits, the headlines dissecting her wardrobe instead of her achievements. She confessed that sometimes she envied people with ordinary lives, people who could walk down the street unnoticed. Ryan almost laughed at that. There was nothing easy about his life, but he understood what she meant. Ordinary meant invisible, and invisible sometimes meant safe. Months passed. The joke that had started everything turned into something unspoken, but real. She began spending evenings at his apartment, sitting at the tiny kitchen table helping Noah with homework. She learned to cook simple meals, because she said takeout had grown boring. She left her penthouse overlooking Central Park more often than she returned to it. The tabloids eventually caught wind of them. Headlines mocked her. Billionaire CEO dating waiter. Speculation spread that he was after her money. Paparazzi waited outside the restaurant. Customers whispered. Ryan wanted to end it. He could handle struggle. He could handle exhaustion. But he could not handle the idea of being seen as a parasite clinging to someone powerful. His pride, already fragile, began to crack. One night, after Noah had fallen asleep, he told Victoria that maybe the world was right. Maybe they were foolish. She didn't argue. Instead, she took off her diamond earrings and set them on the kitchen counter beside a stack of unpaid bills. She said that money had never once held her hand when she was afraid. It had never tucked her in at night. It had never laughed at her bad jokes. She said she didn't want a man who could buy her things. She wanted someone who would choose her even if she lost everything. Ryan thought of the accident, of how quickly everything could vanish, of how he had once believed he was secure. He realized he had been afraid not of her wealth, but of losing her. The real proposal came quietly. No restaurant, no audience. Just the three of them in the park where she first met Noah. She knelt down to Noah's height and asked if it would be okay if she stayed forever. Noah grinned and said only if she promised to come to every school play. Then she stood and looked at Ryan. This time, there was no laughter. He said yes. The wedding was small, not in a cathedral, not in a ballroom. In a modest church in Brooklyn where sunlight streamed through stained glass and painted their faces in color. Her board members attended in stunned silence. His co-workers filled the pews with tears in their eyes. Victoria walked down the aisle without spectacle. Just a woman who had found something money could never purchase. Life did not suddenly become perfect. Ryan still struggled with insecurity. Victoria still faced scrutiny, but they faced it together. She funded scholarships for single parents. He left the restaurant and began managing a community outreach program for Titan Wave, helping families find stable housing and job training. Noah gained not just a stepmother, but a fierce advocate who showed up to every game, every recital, every scraped knee. Years later, when people asked how they met, they would laugh at the absurdity of it all. A joke, a shattered glass, a reckless acceptance. But Ryan would always remember the feeling that followed the laughter, that fragile, terrifying hope. Because sometimes the most unbelievable moments are the ones that save us. And maybe you're listening to this thinking it could never happen to you. Maybe you've convinced yourself that your life is too ordinary, too broken, too small for something extraordinary to find you. Ryan once believed that too. He believed that grief had defined him forever, that he was just a waiter with unpaid bills and tired eyes. He didn't know that someone powerful would see past the uniform, that someone wealthy would crave the quiet strength he carried. He didn't know that love would come disguised as a joke. Before this story ends, take a moment and tell me in the comments, if someone offered you a chance at a life you never imagined, would you have the courage to accept it? Because in the end, it was never about wealth or status. It was about two people who had both known loneliness in different forms, choosing to build something steady together. It was about a little boy who learned that family can grow in unexpected ways. It was about understanding that sometimes the richest thing you can ever be is loved. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe even a little more in second chances and unexpected love, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And never forget that your life, no matter how ordinary it feels, may be one brave yes away from something extraordinary.